G'day everyone, welcome to another episode of the Bamboo History Podcast. I'm your host Stephen, and for those who are new, this is a podcast about Chinese history with a splash of history from neighbouring East Asian countries. If you like this type of content, please subscribe to my podcast and follow my Instagram, TikTok and my website. Those details are all in the description box below. Today, we're bringing back to you another Vietnam history special. Yay! Vui! I can't even remember the last time I covered a Vietnamese history topic, which is probably why I wanted to do one this time around. So this episode's gonna be a banger. Today, we're going to talk about a famous female warrior who fought for Vietnam's freedom against their Chinese overlords. Who is this woman? Well, let's get straight into today's episode. Before we begin, Vietnamese words will be used in this episode. I will try my best to pronounce them, but as I don't speak Vietnamese, please forgive me if I don't pronounce it correctly. Now, on to the episode. I'd like to ride storms, kill orcas in the open seas, drive out the aggressors, reconquer the country, undo the ties of serfdom, and never bend my back to the concubine of whatever man. This is a quote from the woman we're going to talk about today. Her name was Lady Trieu, Trieu spelt Trieu. And she has otherwise also been known as Trieu or Ba Trieu. We don't know exactly the date when Lady Trieu was born, but she lived during the first half of the 3rd century CE in the northern part of Vietnam. In order to know why she is such an important figure in Vietnamese history, we will need to understand the environment she lived in at the time. Vietnam during this period was controlled by the Chinese. From around 111 BCE, the Han dynasty of China defeated the Nam Viet or Nan Yue kingdom and took over its lands, which included the areas of modern-day Guangdong province in southern China and also the part that is now northern Vietnam. Chinese rule over Vietnam was initially lax, and the local Vietnamese had the liberty of self-governing their own affairs. However, over time, the Chinese began their process of Sinicizing the native Vietnamese population. Sinicizing means the process of assimilating non-Chinese groups into Chinese culture and identity. For example, the Vietnamese were made to study Chinese language and literature and to adopt the Confucian way of life. Whilst some of the Chinese ways were welcomed, the Vietnamese overall grew unhappy at being treated as lower than the Chinese, and as more efforts to assimilate the Vietnamese grew, conflicts also began to erupt. A famous example was the Trung Sisters Rebellion, which I covered in episode 30. Check that out. To briefly summarize this rebellion, it was two sisters that led an uprising against the Chinese and were briefly successful in reclaiming some land before being ultimately defeated in the year 40 CE. As a result, the Han dynasty formed an even tighter grip on Vietnam and began to rule the region directly, and the Vietnamese lost all their self-governing powers. The Vietnamese would have to wait for another 200 years for an opportunity to rise up again. The Han dynasty, after many years of decline, collapsed in the year 220 CE. During these years, many warlords sprung up in China, fighting one another to succeed the Han dynasty and become ruler of China. Ultimately, 3 kingdoms emerged to succeed the Han dynasty, and they are known as the Three Kingdoms of China of the famous Sanguo Three Kingdoms period. One of these three kingdoms was the kingdom of Wu, Wu spelt W-U. Historians, though, have labelled this kingdom as Eastern Wu to differentiate it from other kingdoms and states that were also named Wu during China's long history. Vietnam at that time was governed by a man named Shi Xie, also known as Si Nhiep in Vietnamese. Shi Xie is spelt S-H-I-X-I-E. Contrary to what you might think about Shi Xie, he is actually admired by Vietnamese people, even to this day, despite the fact that he was Chinese. Shi Xie, even though he was a Han Chinese man and was a governor representing the Han dynasty, he supported and also promoted Vietnamese culture and was known to have treated the local civilians with care and respect. So much so that he was even considered a Vietnamese king as opposed to a Chinese governor. When the Eastern Wu Kingdom replaced the Han dynasty, Shi Xie pledged his allegiance to the Eastern Wu. But after he passed away in the year 226 CE, his successor and son tried to rebel against the Eastern Wu. But they were heavily defeated, and the Eastern Wu subsequently destroyed the Shi family and their power over Vietnam. In the process, thousands of people, including Vietnamese civilians, were killed, and the Eastern Wu, under their emperor Sun Quan, spelt S-U-N-Q-U-A-N, decided to assert direct control over the land. The Eastern Wu's rule, compared to Shi Xie's, was much more heavier-handed, and many locals once again felt the oppression of Chinese rule. This is where our protagonist, Lady Trieu, comes in. We don't know her exact birth date, but Lady Trieu was most likely born in the 220s CE. Historical records say that Lady Trieu, or Trieu, was from Kuchang, or the Jiuzhen region, which is now the modern-day province of Thanh Hoa in northern Vietnam. We don't know much about her childhood, but the stories say that Lady Trieu was orphaned at a young age and raised by her brother and his wife. Lady Trieu's brother was good to her, but her sister-in-law was known as a cruel person and treated Lady Trieu very badly. When Lady Trieu was 19, she had finally had enough of her sister-in-law, and with the most effective way possible to deal with this despicable person, Lady Trieu killed her. After killing her sister-in-law, Lady Trieu fled into the mountains to avoid capture, and used the time in hiding to hone her fighting abilities, and to also round up a large group of followers, which she did. When she decided to rebel against the Eastern Wu overlords, her brother had tried to convince her not to fight the Chinese, fearing for her safety. "Hey, sister, guy, why do you have to go and fight? You might die. Just stay home and cook me dinner." "Oi, shut up, brother. I want to fight. I want to kick those bloody Chinese people out of our land." There is another saying that it was actually her brother that originally led the uprising, and that she had only joined her brother's rebellion and then rose up the ranks to become an army commander. I like the first version better, but whatever the story was, the outcome was the same. Lady Trieu would lead an army to fight the Chinese. Lady Trieu's rebellion began around the year 248 CE. Vietnamese legend describes Lady Trieu as a woman that was over 2 meters tall, with breasts that were 3 meters long. When she went into battle, she would strap her breasts over her shoulders and wore a gold tunic. she would lead her army by riding into battle on a war elephant. She was fierce and brave, and she led her army to multiple victories against the Chinese, with some saying that she scored as many as 30 victories against the Chinese in battle. For the Chinese, who had ruled Vietnam with an iron grip for such a long time and were so used to the submissiveness of the locals, all these losses would have been a huge shock for them. Sun Quan, the Eastern Wu emperor, was probably heaps angry at what had happened and sent his star general Lu Yin, spelt Luyin, to take care of the Vietnamese. Lady Trieu's rebellion had triggered a wave of unrest in Vietnam, with many other local chieftains rallying their people to gain control of the land. Lu Yin was tasked to pacify the region and restore order, which he did so effectively through acts of kindness and goodwill. And by goodwill, I mean giving the locals a ton of money. And many locals were able to be convinced to stop fighting. But not Lady Trieu. She was determined to become the next ruler of Vietnam, a free Vietnam where the locals would rule without the Chinese. And because she didn't give up, that's why she is the protagonist of this story, and why she's the bloody heroine. Unfortunately for her though, bravery came at a price. She fought Lu Yin, who fought her army with a combined force of Chinese soldiers and Vietnamese soldiers that he had bought over through his acts of, his goodwill. In the same year in 248 CE, Lady Trieu was defeated by Lu Yin. Some say she was killed in battle, while others say that she refused to be taken captive and jumped into a river and committed suicide. Coincidentally, the same thing as what the Trung sisters did 200 years earlier. It would take another 300 years before Vietnam would be able to gain independence from the Chinese and self-govern. After covering the Trung sisters and now Lady Trieu, you're probably wondering why these female warriors are so famous and why there aren't that many male warriors getting the same levels of fame. The most important reason was that ancient Vietnamese society was matriarchal rather than patriarchal. A matriarchal society is a society where women can hold positions of power and attain privileges just like men. This means that it would have been normal for someone like Lady Trieu to lead an army into battle. However, their fame is also boosted by the fact that the Chinese at that time did not regard people like Lady Trieu well, because she was a woman, and because ancient China was a patriarchal society influenced by Confucian values. Confucian values are based off the teachings of Chinese philosopher Confucius. Hence, from the Chinese point of view, it was a joke that a woman was leading men into battle, and no doubt something that they would take note of. It was also then a huge embarrassment for them to fight and then lose to a woman. Because of this, Lady Trieu and the Trung sisters' successes were amplified. This is where, as readers and listeners, we need to be mindful of the historical accuracy of Lady Trieu. Whilst it is true that Lady Trieu existed and did what she did, heroes and heroines in history are often sensationalized, and their stories are often a mix between fact and fiction. The common folk would have admired these people so much that they would have exaggerated certain facts of that person to increase their badassery or create made-up stories to amplify their greatness. So what does this mean for us then? My takeaway is this. Instead of just questioning whether certain parts of Lady Trieu's story are fact or fiction, we need to accept the story we've been told as it is, because we can still learn a lot from the mindset of the Vietnamese people through this story. The fact that her story has been exaggerated highlights that the Vietnamese people who sensationalized Lady Trieu valued her strong character, valued independence from the Chinese, and also valued mutual respect of each other's cultures. Like the Trung sisters, Lady Trieu is viewed as a legendary figure in Vietnamese history and is revered by the Vietnamese today. Like, there are statues of her everywhere in Vietnam, and there are heaps of streets in Vietnamese cities that are named after her. I have never been to Vietnam before, but if I do, I'll be sure to look out for things that commemorate Lady Trieu. So yeah, that's it. That's the end of this episode of Lady Trieu and the end of a Vietnamese history special. I hope you all enjoyed this episode and learnt something new. I certainly did. I'm keen to cover more topics like this, so if anyone has any suggestions, please send them to me. Don't forget, before you leave, to follow my podcast and my social media accounts. I'll leave them all in the description box below. Okay now, it's time to go and ride an elephant. It's time to go and rest. Thank you everyone for listening to today's episode. Enjoy the rest of your day or evening, and I'll see you all next time on the Bamboo History Podcast. Bye for now.